Okay, so how do you edit, use the inventory editor to edit your gear and give it all the perks and stats you want and, all of that jazz? How do you go about that? Okay, so the first thing you want to do is the cheat table. This is a combination of Celios and, the inventory edit table. Pull it up, get it linked in. Okay, so inventory editor and the get item are two of the most common things you'll find yourself using. I don't use the internal hook much, can't speak to its use, but the editor and get item, relatively simple. Get item is great because, you add an item by hash ID. It's very easy to give you exactly what you want. It works just fine. Inventory page, obviously, is primarily for editing purposes. So, here's the inventory page. None of it's populated. Let's populate it. So, we got this. Select this hunter gear item. Okay. Alright. And populated. So, these are the stats of this headgear. You can't just like hover over something. Yeah, you gotta select it. If you need to reselect item, then select it. Few different things to note about this. These P item and the perk numbers here are pointers. There's an important thing to note between hash IDs and the pointers themselves. So, the hash IDs are permanent identifiers. So, for example, P item here, which is the item, this hash ID right here is the hash ID for this headgear. It will always be the hash ID for this headgear. This is the game's current tracking of it. So this will change every time you reload and not reload, restart the game. Okay, so you take the hash ID, permanent, the item / perk, whatever, impermanent. Okay, so for example, with this this headgear, right, this hunter's hood. Okay, this hash ID, the hash ID, is the thing you use if you're going to add an item, right? So, item, add. Do this right, and toggle an item. Added a hunter's hood, new hunter's hood. If I wanted to, here it is. If I wanted to add a new champion's helmet, I could just come over here, because it's newly selected, grab this, copy, and then, because whether you're toggling on or off, it adds it. And new champion's helmet, right? New champion's helmet. Okay? So, hash ID is the thing that's permanent. It's the thing you use here, and it's the identifier for all of these things. Okay? Now, it's pretty important to keep this difference between the hash ID and the current pointer in mind when you're doing any of these edits, for one primary reason. If you change the hash ID, you change everything in the game with this pointer. So, for example, this particular thing here is the warrior damage. It's the warrior damage, the top warrior damage line, the 24% here, right? Now, the hash ID for that is always the warrior damage. Well, let's say I were to replace it with the one for assassin damage. And I did it here at hash ID and not here. Well, everything in the game with that 24% warrior damage would now be assassin damage. Everything. You don't want that. General rule of thumb, never, ever edit the hash IDs in here. Do not change them. You don't want to change them at all. You want to change the pointers, because the pointers, the game has already allocated every one of the perks and every one of the items in the entire game to a pointer. So there is one of these, you know, there's a P item thread for every item in the game, as for every perk and everything. You just need to use that. That's the thing you're changing. So, to give a practical example, okay, I have this list of all sorts of perks in the game. Okay, a lot of these other ones are from 70s. It's not been updated since, you know, the 99 update. These are legendary perks, etc., etc. These are all hash IDs, right? They're permanent. So this 18AECDDBD, you know, that is always going to be 50% adrenaline on dodge, always. So, and it's a head item. Well, we have some extra head items here. Let's throw this in as a new thing on it. Okay. So first, let's select it so that the table is pointed at it, and then let's add it. So, you see the list of items here. You got blacksmith and all this other stuff. How do you add that? So, not supposed to edit hash IDs. How do you get this in here? I'm going to throw it in the blacksmith slot. Well, first, copy this. Okay? This is how you add something when you have no idea what an example in the game is. You don't know what the game is currently tracking. So, exact value, scan type. Value type, 8 bytes. Check hex. Copy this in there. Scan. 2 items. 2 values is very common for this. Okay? So, 114, okay, so just so I have that on hand, you know, that's pointing to that. That's, you know, okay? Now, here is the address it's keeping track of. Now, what you need to do is you need to take the address that it's looking for, and you need to subtract 10 in hex. Not 10 in decimal, 10 in hex. This is a hex number, base 16, not base 10. Use a hex calculator if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? This is easy for me because it's 5, but mine is 4. Okay? So I'm going to take this value, which is 10 hex less. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to, in this blacksmith slot, going to throw that here. Now, if you did it right, you'll notice the hash ID is now the same hash ID. You'll know you did it right if it's identical. If it's not, you fucked up. Now, you shouldn't do any edits like this until you are very experienced with what you're doing, and even then you should still have a backup save. But make sure you save ahead of time, because if you're not familiar with this, it's pretty easy to fuck up. It's pretty easy to screw something up, and if you don't have backup saves that you're not messing with, you know, and you screw something up, you know, bye-bye your game, basically. So have backup saves on hand. Okay? Now, that's properly populated. Doesn't say it is. You know, it doesn't say anything's been changed. Well, gotta update it. So, save. I have backup saves on hand I made ahead of time. 3 is a good reference frame to work with. So save over 3. And then load in 3. Okay. Okay, now, back in the item. What do you know? Here it is. Plus 50% adrenaline on time dodge. This means everything worked. Now, I knew it was going to work because the hash ID was properly marked. Everything looked fine. But that's how you do it. That's a basic edit. You can override the blacksmith item to engraving. You can throw whatever you want in there. Every one of the same stats are available in every other one of the slots. Can go in blacksmith just fine. Right? The engravings don't have unique identifiers to them, and they're the same stats. So, 50% adrenaline on time dodge. Okay, that's a solid example. Let's show off a slightly different example. You'll notice that because of the load, it cleared this. That's easy enough to fix, just regrab. So, this is now that. Oh, and you'll notice this damage adrenaline now. This means nothing as far as the game itself is concerned. It's just a helpful tooltip by the engine. So, you know, it just helps you to see what's what. Okay? So, and obviously damage adrenaline, it's an internal subset. So, you know, that 50% adrenaline time dodge. Well, let's try a different stat. So this Hunter headgear comes with 50% crit damage and 20% crit chance while full health. Both are really good abilities. Of course they are, right? Well, let's say we wanted to throw something else in there. Okay, let me grab this Pilgrim's Hood I have here. Let's say I wanted to throw 30% damage with daggers. Okay? This is a slightly different way. So if you already have an item in-game that has the stat that you want, then it's actually pretty easy to, it's a good deal easier than just looking it up through that 8-byte because you already have the pointer. So 30% damage with daggers. For reference, there is you know how it's perk 1, perk 3, perk 4, perk 2. This is ordered in here in the order you see them. So don't worry about perk 4, just what's the positioning on it. Blacksmith is always perk 2, perk 1, perk 3, perk 4, but it's the order in which you see them listed. Except on legendary items where it gets a little bit more complicated. But the basic, that's basically it. The engraving is perk 2, and then it's just ordered down the line. And the legendary items with their set bonuses have, you know, perk 4 here is listed as nothing. Legendary items just don't mess with, if something's a 0 edit, like, and it's not the blacksmith, don't touch it. I honestly don't know what would happen if you edited this to something, but it probably wouldn't be good. Okay, it might work. Try it out if you want, just make sure you have a backup save. So, but anyway, we have this damage with daggers, right? Damage weapon is the tooltip thing that the game uses. Now this is obviously the level 10 damage with daggers, is 30%. It's the hash ID for it. Now I could look it up, or I could just grab the pointer I already have, because I know that this is correctly pointing to it because the game's using it already. So let's take this and switch over to the here, okay? And instead of using the blacksmith, let's throw it in perk 4 slot and swap out crit chance with full health. I don't know why you would do this normally, but you know, demonstration purposes. So we copied the value from other. Okay, now this just looks wrong now, right? Well, it doesn't update immediately. But if you copy back over, now it says damage weapon because the tooltip is just nah. Now you have to save and reload in order for things to properly repopulate. Okay. Now, as you can see, 30% damage with daggers. And that's a lot easier to do than looking it up because, again, I already have an item on hand that has the proper value. Fair enough. Okay, so what happens when, however, you take the 70 table that I'm going to be throwing into the description and you want to use one of those perks? You know, not a legendary perk, because those legendary perks, obviously, are, you know, unleveled. But you want to get one of these, and then you want to get it up to 10 because, you know, presumably you're maxing your level out and you don't give a shit. So, let's use poison damage as an example. This is a level 70 perk. Okay? So, grab this poison damage. Search as per usual. Okay, we got this value. 3.8, 2.8. Okay, and let's throw it into perk 3. Yeah, perk 3 sounds good. Okay, the tooltip doesn't update immediately, but there it is. So damage is there and ready to go. Now, it's a level 70 perk. The easiest way to handle that is going to be to take this item, set it to 70, because 70 level perk, level 70 item. Okay. Go out. Save over. Okay, so you got the item, and it's level 70, and it's got this 28% poison damage, you know, because that's a level 70 perk. So take this item. I'm gonna unequip just because of simplicity here.
Like?
Upgrade. Go to any blacksmith and just upgrade it as you would.
Thanks for stopping by.
And here we are, 40% poison damage. That's the way you deal with it for that. If you tried it at 98 instead of 70, it doesn't work right, so just adjust the level down to 70. It just is what it is. Also, you could just, you know, take the table and just update it as you come across stuff that happens to have those level 10 perks as you go, if you want. I'm not interested. So, yeah, that is how you do all of this. That's how you operate the table. That's how you make it work.